Let's get more on this dramatic decision from Joe Biden. Not a shock in the end, but he has officially relinquished the presidential campaign for the Democratic Party. Joining me live now, one of my regular US guests, University of Sydney political scientist, Professor Simon Jackman, and from the University of California, Irvine, Professor DeSipio. Thank you both for your time. Simon, did he have any choice in the end? Because the fact that this criticism ramped up so quickly after that assassination seemed to indicate Democrats were not for turning.
Oh, look, in a strictly formal legal sense, of course he had a choice, Tom, but politically, realistically, I think the die was cast, frankly, a long time ago. I think the final nail in the coffin of his political career, if you will, is the polling that he himself commissioned, and that came back and indicating that Harris is a better prospect, particularly in swing states, and not just in swing states, but in some other seats that had started to slip out of Democrats' grasp. And I think that was the final straw for a political realist like Joe Biden.
Sometimes the best indicator, Lewis, is what your opposition thinks in terms of what you're doing. What do you sense the Republican Party really think and Team Trump really think about this change and what it means for them?
Oh, I think they would have rather run against President Biden. They were preparing for that, and I think they had a message that was working. I think they also saw that President Biden really couldn't respond to some of their misleading statements and their attacks. So they're now having to prepare for a new campaign. They have some easy attacks on Vice President Harris, but the proof will be in the pudding about how effective she is as a campaigner. And the evidence so far is pretty good.
I guess that's the interesting thing, Simon, in terms of perceptions of Kamala Harris. There's the last time she tried to be the presidential candidate where she completely flopped. She's known for sort of awkward moments, laughing at the wrong time and so on. But, you know, 4 years as vice president teaches you a fair bit, doesn't it? What do you think of the modern, I guess, the post-VP potential she has? Is she being underestimated, or does she have some real weaknesses as a candidate?
I think she's probably been underestimated. I think you've got to understand the context now. And right now you've got a Democratic Party that's, oh, thank heavens, is going to anoint her and celebrate her. And it looks like that's coming together in real time. The endorsements yet to come from some high-profile Democrats, but in the main, the momentum is clearly with her. She's going to get a coronation from a grateful and relieved party at the convention coming up. And moreover, Tom, 4 years as VP, you do learn a lot about the big stage, right? Remember, she hadn't been in the Senate that long. It'd been a pretty fast ride from, I remember, living in the Bay Area of California, her becoming a DA in San Francisco, then on to DA, Attorney General for the state, and then on to the Senate. That's actually, as politics go, certainly compared to Joe Biden's career, that's been a pretty fast transition. On the other hand, Tom, though, Trump will hang immigration policy failure around the neck of Kamala Harris. He will say, and perhaps with some justification, she was tasked with this difficult policy domain by President Biden. She has shown herself to be incompetent on those sorts of issues, and they will go very hard at her, I think, on the competence issue around this issue that Trump has put at center stage of his campaign.
Yeah, so for anyone that's working broadly on the Democratic campaign, Lewis, the first thing you go is, oh, we don't have to talk about, age and decline. What a relief. But two things, what Simon alluded to there, borders, it was already an issue. Does that get ramped up even more? And then I'm sure there'll be the initial questions. She needs to find a good line on this. She was defending Joe Biden's competency only days ago. I mean, she didn't really have a choice, but that's not the point. She's got to sort of back that up. How does she handle that? Does she sidestep it? Does she be frank? How does she deal with that?
I think her success in part still depends on how President Biden performs over the next several months. He will be the most effective advocate for his administration, and I would fully expect him to be on the campaign trail, not as regularly as if he were running himself. She will be able to offer the message for the future. She's certainly going to get attacked on immigration, but she can respond with issues of reproductive choice, which is a great weakness for the Republicans. I think candidates throughout the country will be more happy to appear with her than they were with President Biden. So that will be sort of an added set of resources that she can have. I guess the final question is who she indicates will be her vice presidential nominee. That will be an early sign of her thinking, but also will be a way of speaking to some of these weaknesses.
Yeah, so that'll give us an indication of where she thinks she needs to shore up. I saw some interesting analysis, Simon, that she's been more sympathetic to the Palestinian side in the Gaza war, and that might mollify some of the Arab American voters, which I guess helps, but that also leaves you a bit open, I suppose. So how do you see that particular aspect of the election, which has been a pretty live one for the Democrats, because their base is a bit more divided over it. The Republican base, it's an easy thing to talk about.
Yeah, look, it's still a weak point for the Democrats as they need to unify. You don't want scenes like the 1968 Chicago Convention of protesters disrupting the event. They want a smooth transition. I think they want to bed down division around Middle East policy as best they can. But I think Democrats will also know that's not what this election is going to be decided about. The real enemy is not what we think about one another's position on Middle East policy. The real enemy is what Trump and Vance have in mind for the future of the country. As Lewis just said, with Harris putatively, the head of the ticket now, a woman, reproductive rights, a great issue for Democrats, comes back to the top of the ticket. They will be stressing, accentuate the positive will be their policy going forward, and trying to minimize, I think, those things that divide Democrats. Number one, Biden's candidacy done. Number two, Middle East policy. Expect that to play a very background role in the months ahead.
Then there's the economy. I mean, there's a lot of good indicators in there, Lewis, in particular around the biggest issue around the world, inflation. So if this tracks well over the next few months, that could help as well. And could there be some people, I know, there's elements of Trump's economic plan around tariffs that are sort of populist and popular, but they're meant to stoke inflation. We're going to see things more on the economic actual debate? Because, Donald Trump wants to make big changes.
Well, I'm sure Donald Trump will keep the economy front and center. He thinks it's a strong issue for him, and it has been so far because President Biden was ineffective at responding. He could only sort of speak to his accomplishments. Again, I think Vice President Harris, if she gets the nomination, will be able to respond to President Trump and articulate an alternative message. And she'll be able to make the exact point you were making, that some of President Trump's proposals around the economy will ultimately isolate the United States and be inflationary in the long run.